celebrity? This has become an important question of our time. Once upon a time, fame was limited to the actor, cricketer, or pop star. But social media has changed it all. We're now in the era of the influencer, an individual who is famous for, well, being famous. And brands can't get enough of them. The boom of influencer marketing has been phenomenal. The Indian influencer industry is expected to grow 25% per year to reach a size of over 2,200 crore rupees in the next 10 years. The global market for influencers has grown a whopping 8 times in the last 5 years, valued at $14 billion. So let's get back to the basic question. Who is an influencer?
For me, influencer is a person whom people trust. Suppose if I am reviewing any outlet and people are watching my video and going and trying that food, it means that I'm influencing them. They are trusting my review.
Pujneet Singh, who goes by the name of Bhuka Sand online, is a popular food blogger with over 7.5 lakh followers on YouTube. He is a blogger and he reviews food all across the country while holding a full-time job.
I'm a working professional I'm an IT manager in a US firm, and from Monday to Friday, I'm having an office. So Monday to Friday, I work for my bread and butter, and Saturday, Sunday is something I work for my passion.
Hello Janki, हाँ, अब जिंदगी पलटने वाली है. अब कौन सा बैंक बंद हो गया?
There are now lakhs of people who fall into the category of influencer, and for advertisers, they've become almost as valuable as the big stars. Their ability to actually contribute to sales of brands they endorse may still be debatable, but there is little doubt that influencers are growing in clout. Influencers are also raking in the big bucks. They could earn above 1 lakh rupee per post on social media platforms depending on their following. Influencers earn through views of their content as well as brand endorsements. The spends on influencers by brands last festive season was as high as 600 crore rupees as per reports. And brands that sell direct to consumers seem to prefer using influencers. So how are influencers identified? How do brands gauge their compensation? And how does one become an influencer? More on this ahead. So what, after all, is an influencer? Who is an influencer? How do you define this category? And why have brands suddenly decided that the way to reach the largest number of people in a meaningful way is not necessarily through well-known stars and celebrities and faces, but also through influencers? To understand more about this whole scenario of influencer marketing, I'm joined today by Ranveer Allahbadia, also known as BeerBiceps online. He's a digital content creator. Harish Bijoor, brand guru, is joining us today on the show, and I'm also speaking with Varun Duggirala, who wears many hats, but among them, he's the co-founder of The Glitch. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us this week on The Spotlight. Let me come to you on this, Harish. Why suddenly are brands deciding that people who have interesting thoughts and lots of followers because of those thoughts are going to be effective communicators of what their brand stands for and eventually get people to buy their products?
Okay, Tamanna, very simply put, brands look for credible mediums. And when they look at advertising as a medium, there is a loss of credibility in advertising today, and that is to be accepted. There's too much of massification, and there's too much of, speaking top down. Whereas when it comes to an influencer is not one, but maybe 20,000 of them. I do use, for a particular bank, I use 26,000 influencers. So what does that mean? It simply means to say that it's a very demassified cluster. And an influencer is a person like you and I, okay? And to that extent, relatable. And to a very great extent, there's a higher degree of credibility in an influencer. And therefore, brands run for that. One other reason is the fact that, advertising looks very much like a paid-for medium, whereas influencers don't, in bracket, as yet, look as paid-for mediums. Now, even this medium is going to get corrupted. Influencers are going to get corrupted, but not yet.
No, I mean, it's a very important point you raise, Harish, because I believe ASCII wants to now have influencers mention, or it to be clear to people who are consuming that content, that so and so person is talking up a product because they have been paid for it. Let me come to you, Ranveer, on this point about the huge growth of influencers as a vehicle of communication for brands and what that has meant for individuals like you.
Okay, I'll answer the previous why that you mentioned. The why primarily is because the world is kind of more lonely now, and it's also smarter, it's more aware, thanks to social media in both cases. There's an excess of information that's made people smarter, and so the nature of social media has made the world lonelier. So the influencer for the average everyday teenager or college kid or young professional is sort of an online friend, because you get to see your friends' thoughts, you get to see your friends' words. You kind of build like this relationship with that online friend. You have trust in that friend. Therefore, this is the new sort of word of mouth marketing. What word of mouth marketing used to be, this is an extension of that. That's how it works. In terms of what it's done, I began in 2015, and we've seen the whole geo wave kind of hit the country. We've seen content creation go into tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. We're seeing it grow constantly. We've seen an increase in the amount of money that all content creators and influencers in this country are making. So it's been fantastic. It's created jobs. The corruption has also already happened. There's a form of consolidation already happening. But overall, it's a fantastic place to be. And this is not just in India, all over the world. The whole influencer angle is here to stay, especially when the metaverse hits us and when we move into Web3.
Ranveer, let me follow up on that. A lot of people watching this might be thinking, why can't I be an influencer? So what does it take? And that is the X factor, which is difficult to identify. Like I mentioned in the opening, you need not be a celebrity, you need not be an actor, a film star, a singer, or any of those things. But there are people famous for, well, just being famous. So how do you become an influencer?
Yeah, so I think there's different forms of fame nowadays when we're talking about the whole influencer segment. There's short-lived fame, and that's often the people who are just famous for being famous. The ones who've sustained, the influencers who've maintained their relevance over like a 5-year period and are likely to maintain their relevance over 10, 15-year period are the ones who are core content creators. And to be a content creator, it's a combination of different skill sets. You have to be good at marketing. You have to be good at some forms of consumer psychology. You need to be a good writer. You obviously need to be a good communicator on screen. You need to have an eye for like filmmaking. So it's a bunch of different skill sets that come together and result in a long-term career as a content creator. And obviously, there has to be a business angle to all this.
Okay, so now let's get Varun here on what that business angle is. Varun, give us a sense of how large this business has grown over the last few years. We know that it is expected to grow to 2,200 crores in the next 10 years, a CAGR of 25% per year. Where is this growth coming from, and what are the kind of feedback or return that brands are really looking for?
So there are a few things happening in this space, right? I think on one end, brands are also kind of facing the heat because creators and influencers today don't just need brands to be able to monetize, because all creators are looking at it saying, okay, there's a certain amount of money I make from brands, primarily because of the reach I have. So there was a time when you had to explain to a brand how influencer marketing will work. Today, brands know exactly how this works. They have access to data. They're looking at how each creator, influencer will reach out to a specific audience. So there's a lot of money flowing over there. But what all influencers and creators have actually done is to say, how can I kind of build this without brands themselves? And that's actually been the most interesting thing that's really happening there, is that, have a creator building out digital products, right? You're building out courses, you're building out, NFTs, you're building out things that you can kind of sell as a creator online. People are buying those. I think the largest amount of monetization is actually happening on digital products with especially courses, which I think is the most interesting thing to look at. And there's also a lot of them launching physical products. Creators are investing into companies. Ranveer's someone who's done that quite a bit in the recent past. And the interesting part is, as they kind of diversify how they all make money, it's also making brands look at, okay, what can I offer the creator to make them work with me rather than the other way around, which is a great flip to have, because till now you had influencers saying, okay, how can I get a brand to give me a brand deal? And as that flip has happened, and as they've diversified every creator is an entrepreneur today. So as an entrepreneur, you're diversifying your portfolio. of where your revenues are coming from. And because you're doing that, brands are having to come back and say, how can I make more authentic content for that influencer's channel? And so as you do that, the amount of money you spend also goes up. The amount of, just reach and access a brand has kind of goes up. So I think it's the ecosystem is growing because of the whole diversification of where revenue is really flowing in and out from.
Varun, give me a sense of how much influencers make. And I know this is a very vague question because you have categories, you have micro influencers, macro influencers, the really big names, the ones who are starting out. But give me sort of a ballpark idea, because people watching this may not know that this is not just about posting and becoming popular and having more social media followers. This is now a legitimate way of earning money.
If I had to kind of break this down, I'll give some very basic, I'm going to like super generic in terms of these numbers. If in case of a brand deal and you have to put a post out, a video out, let's say an Instagram reel out there, etc., you're looking at anything ranging from at the bottom level, like, looking at early thousands, if not 10, 20,000 per piece, to going into like higher lakhs of like, double digits in some cases. In terms of courses, people are paying anything between, I would say 500 rupees per person for a short course to like 10,000 rupees per month. I know some courses which go 10 grand a month, but you have like hundreds, if not thousands of people signing up for those courses. So if you are a creator today, and you have a specialization, it's a great, like I know creators who are doing courses on communication writing, on being a podcaster, on even like how do I submit a book proposal if I want to become an author tomorrow, and people are paying about $5,000-8,000 for that, and suddenly you hit that to 200 to 500 people per batch. That creator is making a lot of money. So that's how it's really scaling up. It's scaling up because of the volume and because innately every influencer and creator knows how to create, but is at the core an entrepreneur, so they know how to monetize it really well, understand data, understand media. So all of that coming together, I could be sitting right here and doing all of that and never have to leave home to make money. So that's actually the best part.
Wow. That probably got even a bigger push during the pandemic. But I want to understand how the success metric is identified when it comes to this space. And Harish, let me come to you on that. The most apparent one, of course, is who has how many followers and how much engagement and all of those metrics. But is that the only thing that brands are looking at? How do you calculate why that post should cost a brand 25,000 or 3 lakhs?
Well, there are very many metrics, possibly 4 or 5 of them, which are typically used. But of course, reach is one big one in terms of to say that, how many numbers of followers they have, depth of involvement as far as their content is concerned, the kind of humor that plays a role in a large sets of content. I mean, that gets a premium at times. The kind of conversations a particular piece of content is able to create, that is measured as well very deeply. The idea is that, hey, listen, there are N numbers of creators all over there. Gone are the days of getting one advertising agency and getting it to make one creative and push that one creative down the throats of millions of people. Today, it's this business of saying, if you have 6,000 creators, each one creates specifically, diversely, and that creative gets pushed down people's throats. So you add up the quotient that comes out of that in terms of saying, if you are using just 20 creators, you add up all these multiples and then say that, hey, listen, this is the kind of value the creator brings to the party, and this is the kind of money that I'm willing to pay.
Now, when you have so many people becoming influencers, finding success and getting brands to sign on, Ranveer, I'm sure this is also getting to be a very competitive field. How does someone who is in this space stay ahead?
So that's honestly the challenge with this career in the long term, that you have to keep reinventing. There is this fight for relevance. There is this fight for numbers. There is this whole subject called social media that's come about now. You have to stay ahead of where the algorithms are currently at. Now, what I mean by that is certain pieces of content or certain kinds of content will do better than other kinds of content. So you need to catch those trends really early on. And it's very much like a sport. while it's extremely rewarding and while, there's fame and money involved, the flip side is that there is some level of emotional sacrifice, some level of sacrifice when it comes to time. But honestly, that's the only way to stay relevant. Like it's exactly like how you'd perceive a sport. That's how I look at it, at least.
Is it very stressful to come up with new and interesting ways to put out content every day?
I think to actually do the content isn't stressful, but to constantly think of reinventions, sometimes once every 3 months or so, those phases become stressful because there are ups and downs, and the downs are what test most creators. And mostly there are actually more downs than there are ups. It's just the nature of this industry. So it's extremely emotionally taxing, and there is a whole mental health angle to this career. Like you have to kind of figure out the best systems for yourself. Like I know Varun for a couple of years now, and he's been someone who's guided me like through this path. So, you need some sort of mentorship as well. I also come from a place of running a talent management agency. So we've seen talents across different domains, and everyone pretty much faces the same problem of, okay, what's my next reinvention? What's the next kind of content I'm going to be known for? How do I take my brand further? How do I get my numbers up? How do I attract more brands to work with me? It's common problems across, but you have to stay at it with the game.
Yeah, I want to pick on a point that Harish made at the beginning of this discussion. Harish, when you talked about the reason why brands want influencers to push their messages because they have more credibility, and traditional ads don't have that credibility. But beyond a point, isn't that in a sense being non-transparent with people who are consuming it? For example, if I'm seeing a video where someone is saying, eat this food, it's healthy for you, I want to know if that person is being paid to put out that message and whether it's actually true.
Well, that is precisely the reason why ASCII has its sets of norms today, and which a whole lot of creators are up against. And fundamentally, it's needed because if the creator economy can be a democracy, but there's a very thin line dividing the democracy from an anarchy. And you don't want the creator economy to get into an anarchy kind of a mode. Therefore, one needs to be careful. But the real fact is that, there's no one truth. There are multiple sets of truths which really talk the same language about that one particular brand. So if you get multiple sets of people doing it, nothing like it. And then when you look at someone and you say that, hey, really look at these guys out here. I mean, he looks like the boy next door, let's say, Varun, I'm talking about you, the boy next door kind of a guy. And he can't lie. Oh God, come on. He won't lie. He cannot be bought out by a brand which might force him say things. And that's the truth. Because, people who are like you and I are slightly more responsible at times. So I think, even though every Tom, Dick and Harish can create content, every Tom, Dick and Harish is trusted for the sake of the fact that they are just that. Common people with common views, multifarious sets of thoughts, which keep getting pinged out with brilliant creators hitting out there. We have guys as creators, we have girls as creators, we have cats, we have dogs, we have an elephant today. So if you really look at it, there are guys, Pablo the Papa. I mean, if you really look at it, there are dogs which actually have handles and they're doing pretty well. So I think it's this business of saying this message comes to you from someone like you. That's the point.
But again, then that's the point. Let me take that question to the boy next door. Isn't that duplicitous in a way? You're being unfair if you're not telling people that there is a monetary gain behind the message that you're putting out. Put out that message, but let people know.
So I was actually part of a group of creators and agency folk who kind of worked with ASCII on some of the first set of guidelines that came out. And this is some of the questions we all had, like, okay, where do you draw the line? How do you kind of call things out? How many people will follow it? What we genuinely saw was both brands as well as influencers and creators really do want to kind of put it out there that they're doing it for a certain monetary benefit. But the question really comes in is that if somebody sends me a gift, I'm not being paid for it. How do I disclose that? So the nuances of how many different ways in which this has to be showcased is actually the problem. And I don't think it lies entirely with the influencers. I think there's a lot for brands to think about how they want to use them as well. I feel that most creators and influencers will be more than happy to talk about the fact that this is an ad. But how many brands are open to that as well? Most of them are. I think there's still many who don't want to do that. So I think the real balance will come in when everybody agrees. And I think the big one here is, will all brands agree to say, okay, no, this is actually an ad? And to be honest, most consumers get it. I think people are smarter now because they kind of they've seen so much of this content. They can spot an ad when it's an ad, and which is why it has to be authentic to what the creator normally creates. I'm also happy that I was called boy next door. I'm almost 40. It's always a good compliment to get. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay, Ranveer, where do you stand on this debate, which is right now brewing in your world?
So yeah, I think we are underestimating the audiences of 2022. Like people know immediately what you're up to, even to the degree where they can even sometimes tell where, okay, the brand has probably sent this to them for free, or this person usually puts up these stories for free. What I will say on behalf of all the creators is that when you actually list out that this is a paid partnership, the algorithm actually down pumps your piece of content. So it doesn't work well for the brand. That's why so many creators are kind of on the fence about putting out whether or not it is a branded piece. In terms of the audience picking it up, everyone picks it up immediately. So that's the reality. I always encourage everyone to kind of put it out always. But, it's a free country. So people do kind of what they want.
Yeah, well, that's the big debate going on in the space of influencer marketing. But this has been a very interesting chat. Thank you to all of you for joining us and putting the spotlight on what is maybe the hottest and fastest growing space in advertising, content, information, and perhaps a mix of all of this. Thanks once again.